युवा देश है। विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है और भारत इसके बात के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साफ मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूं, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया टुमारो।
Namaskar, a warm welcome to 19th World Education Summit. I welcome all the audience on the day 3 on the panel discussion 3 with a new under topic challenges in the global education in post-COVID era. This is a very important topic in the current situation. So for this topic, I would like to invite the speakers of this session. So I would like to welcome Professor Prabhat Ranjan, Vice Chancellor, D.Y. Patil International University, Pune. Welcome, Prabhat sir. Welcome. Thank you for joining us at this World Education Summit. I would like to welcome Professor Dr. Ashok Mahapatra, Vice Chancellor, Siksha O Anusandhan, Deemed to be University from Bhubaneswar. Welcome, Ashok sir. Welcome to the World Education Summit. Thank you for giving your precious time. I would like to welcome Dr. Akhil Shahani, Managing Director, the Shahani Group from Mumbai. Welcome, Akhil sir. Welcome to World Education Summit. I would like to welcome Dr. Professor Rajesh Arora, Vice Chancellor, Apex Professional University from Arunachal, Pradesh. Welcome, Dr. Rajesh. Welcome to the 19th World Education Summit. And I would like to welcome our speaker and the moderator of this session, Professor Dr. Abhay Kumar, Vice Chancellor, Pratap University, Jaipur, Rajasthan. Welcome, Dr. Abhay sir. Thank you for giving your precious time to World Education Summit. And I would like to hand over the session to the Abhay sir to have a wonderful discussion. And I would like audience, if you have any question, please be free, put your question live on this session. And Abhay sir and all the speakers will take it live. Thank you. Thank you very much. Abhay sir, over to you.
Thank you, Abhishek ji. It is really a pleasure to be once again with Elets Technomedia. It is a wonderful platform which promotes education in every way. I am happy to be here with us with such distinguished panelists today. Professor Prabhat Ranjan, Professor Ashok Mahapatra, Dr. Akhil Shahani, and Dr. Rajesh Arora. So, sirs, we would begin today with a small introduction which I would like to give first. The topic being challenges in global education in post-COVID era. Now, post-COVID era is going to witness profound changes in the education sector. We all know that. There are, however, no acceptable ready-made solutions, either technological or otherwise, outside of our work and actions. And say history is being rewritten with a great speed, and we are faced with certain choices and decisions that will define the future of education. So when we look at the responses to this crisis, we find original and creative ideas coming from all corners of the world. So today, when we talk about COVID-19 crisis, we know that there has been a technological disruption. We all know that the psychosocial well-being has been compromised for all and sundry. There are so many things which has happened, but there are many positive things which have also come up. In fact, this crisis has exposed the fact that innovation and creativity are broadly distributed and not exclusive purview of select well-resourced centers only. So there are so many things we can talk about. No, but overall, this pandemic has no doubt reshaped the way many of us have approached education as a whole and pedagogy, especially, for example, online blended learning approaches have been adopted by all and sundry. So there are so many things. But of course, can these challenges be mitigated? Are reforms possible? Will reforms be effective? Are education and government institutions and industry willing to live up to the challenges? Can blended learning be a global solution? We are talking about a global perspective right now. Will institutions revert back to the models of education that were implemented pre-COVID-19, or we would have a new evolution of, say, a system in education, whether it is school or higher education? So to begin with, Professor Prabhat, first I would like to request you to please tell me, we all know that online learning is here to stay, but what is the future of the education system in the post-COVID era? Sir, please educate us with this.
Sure. So actually, the education system pre-COVID that we're following had to do something with industrial revolution. We had, if you look at Indian traditional system, we had Guru Shishya Parampara, which was customized learning for each student. And the Guru was to decide that when the learning of the child is over, and whether it's 6 months or 5 years, that was decision the Guru has to take. Industrial revolution 250 years ago or so, that actually brought this current system that we have been following pre-COVID, if you call it, which was an assembly line system where you put a student into 3-year or 4-year program and they enter and they come out. They may get A grade or they may get D grade, but they still get a degree. This was to actually meet the requirement of industrial revolution, centralized large factories that had come up. And as you're aware that when we prepared Technology Vision 2035 as head of TIFAC, which Prime Minister released 5 years ago, we had also prepared roadmaps in different sectors to achieve this particular vision. There's a small booklet along with that document, and I had put education right on the top. The first one was education. If you see the list of sectors, I have always put education on the top because I always believe that education is the key to India's success. In this particular document, we had already seen the changes that were happening globally and the technological development that were happening. What COVID did was to actually accelerate that whole process. It kind of forced us to adopt that. So what was already happening, we have been forced to adopt in last 1 year, slightly more than 1 year now, you can say. So both plus and minus points are there. Okay. The education system, global education system, for example, personally, I have studied for 5 years in US during my PhD days. And also within India, I moved from one institution to another institution. Fortunately, I was lucky that I did not stay in one place or one education institute or one city for a particular 2 degrees. So I moved across country in different education systems. So it's not only simply the learning, the knowledge, it is actually the cultural experience, everything else that matters. What this system that we are right now in, it is doing 2 things. Good point, as you mentioned, was that we can be anywhere, we can still get the education, does not matter. Similarly, the resource requirement to start education, the fact that today we are discussing like this is possible today because the organizers did not have to spend a lot of money to get us on the platform. We also do not mind because it does not take our time in travel, other things, we can easily connect back. So that's why we have plethora of these happening almost every day, alternate day we are participating in this. So this has become possible because the setting up cost has become very less. Secondly, students can be anywhere, they can get access to global education wherever they are. It does not matter, you have to go to US to do that, or you have to go to Europe or somewhere, or you want Indian education system, you don't have to travel to India. Okay? So this has actually bridged that gap. And this is again something not we have talked about for a long time. Internet actually brought some of this thing happening, that knowledge gap between developed country and developing countries reduced completely. And personally, I got a lot of advantage of that. Now that has accelerated to the extent that today we feel comfortable. Not only education, in family matters, today we, like my grandson, if I have to connect to him, he's in US, I connect through the same system. Okay. I'm teaching him, I'm teaching through the same system because I don't have opportunity to interact with him. But then that personal touch, that is completely missing. The peer-to-peer learning is missing this system. When you go into another place, another work culture, whether same institute, whether same country or another country. That part is completely missing. But what this is going to stay with us, as we have seen, what is going to add to this, the few things that are going to add further, which we are going to see. One is use of artificial intelligence in a bigger way. The augmented reality, virtual reality, and holography are going to start playing a very important role in improving this learning process. When I had prepared a detailed project report for a scheme that Department of Science and Technology has launched called Interdisciplinary Cyber Physical Systems, which DST has launched at the cost of 2,660 crores. I think that was the largest scheme. Now I've seen that DST has launched another one on quantum technology of 8,000 crores. In that, actually, we visualized 25 grand challenges. And one of them was multilingual holographic guru, That means it's a hologram that is in your room, talking to you in the language of your choice. So each child can learn in the language of choice. This is very, very important for a country like India and as well as for global education. I should be able to learn in the language of my choice. It does not matter what the teacher is teaching in. So if I want to learn from in France and they're teaching in French, I should be learning the language I want. And within India itself, it's very important. So this is also happening. So in terms of technological changes, augmented reality, virtual reality, holography, role of artificial intelligence, and the language part is coming in very strongly. And there again, AI is playing very important. So all of these are going to make global education very important. It will kind of bring the world together the way we have seen today. For example, I'm finding, and I'm sure that all of you and your universities are finding the same thing, that there are people anywhere in the world, they're willing to participate, they're wanting to talk to students, they want to give lectures to students. They're not looking for any remuneration. Just the joy for them, they wanted to connect back is very much possible, and none of us minded that I have to give lecture or they have to give lecture here. It becomes very easy. So I have to stop at this point, but it's going to be a blended learning, I believe, in the future as things start to normalize. And if you see my postings, I've been predicting the trajectory of COVID. And right now we are in the falling phase. We're still bad compared to the last year's peak. We're still slightly higher than that. But I'm in Pune, and I'm proud to say that earlier we used to say that what Bengal thinks today, India thinks tomorrow. Today, what Maharashtra thinks today happens to India tomorrow. So COVID and Maharashtra has been leading. So we peaked early also, and we are falling sharp. So today we're starting to see things normalizing now. And this is, I'm expecting that things don't go bad. We start to see students on the campus, but online learning is going to be there. The global connectivity is going there. Global faculty teamwork, global students are going to be part of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Prabhat. We've learned a lot from what you have said in terms of the world coming together in education, and education is more accessible now than ever before in terms of online learning now having been introduced. There are so many things you've talked about which we have come to understand, and we will talk about it later in the question and answer and chat sessions. Now I would move to Professor Ashok Mahapatra. Sir, it is being said that naturally we see that the global economy has been very badly hit, and most of even the best of the countries are having an economy which has shrunk down to a level from which it is very difficult to come up. The employment structure has changed. The workplaces have changed. The workforces have changed. The nature of the work has changed. Even Dell Technologies says that by 2030, the Gen Z and the millennials and the alpha, the jobs would not exist what they are at present. That means the nature of the jobs would change. Now, what would be the effect of a shrinking global economy and employment structure on global education, sir? Can you please throw some light on that?
See, it's a very important question. Let me first tell, we are not the post-pandemic, we are middle of pandemic. Because pandemic never dies, it is only people become braver and more intelligent. So, I have twice COVID, once in August and second time in May. On 9th of May to 25th of May, I was in isolation. And 3 of my relatives have died in last 1 month. And we have today 2,000 plus bed in 5 different cities from our university. So question is that pandemic has not done. We have to learn to live with pandemic. Now the question is that how in a global shrinking economy we improve our education in the digital platform. So the question is that total employment perspective has changed. If you look at 10 companies in the world, those are IT professionals. Their income in last 1 year has gone from 8 trillion to 12.5 trillion. The people, those who never had mask, they are now taking mask, PPT, PP kits, and sanitizer. So the demand of the people have changed. The TV artists are selling the fruit seller. The question is that as the education is supposed to be flexible, our job has to be flexible depending the world. Now the question is that we have to match with the world's economy and we have to progress with the world. It is true that India has a much worse economy strong than any other country because a huge country and diverse publicity. And when a COVID came, it is different part of India got affected different time. So it is affect the psychology and public sentiment for a longer time. The pandemic which persist in 2 months in UK persist 8 months in India. Because if Maharashtra is suffering, Delhi is okay. When Delhi is suffering, Odisha is okay. Now Odisha is suffering. The question is that when you see things, so it demoralizes people. Sometimes we say our TV is doing something good to educate us, also demoralizing, showing other places, Ganga, there are dead bodies. So it is a positive impact, negative, we have to decide. Despite of that, we had a good recovery of our economy. And we are expecting this time, if we see the RBI prediction, they are expecting 8.46% growth than previous last year loss of minus 23% down because of economy down for COVID and lockdown. Question is that now we have to match this economic fall with our education system, which requires a lot of money. If you have to go through the 20 to 25, 25 to 35, then you require a lot of investment. In the digital technology, it requires not only once investment, it is not like solar panels. The digital technology, which as a director I have put in Sanjay Gandhi as a hospital information system 1994-96, 1 crore rupees. When you rechange it in 2007, it was 15 crores. The question is that digital technology is a slow process which started during the telecom and IT mission of Rajiv Gandhi. Those days, I spent 42 years at AIMS Delhi. From 1975 to 2017, I see how the technology has changed, and AIMS had a computerization in 1987, but because the doctors and nurses did not know, the computers are condemned after 3 years. The question is that here you are talking about shrinking economy and more demand in education system if you have to go from one system to another system in a phased manner. So we have to plan such a way, we have a short-term, medium-term and long-term planning to see that our education system is blended. If you look at our Odisha, there are 36 universities. Maybe up to 5 or 6 universities are online. But if you see all government university, they say 40% people of Odisha are tribal. And they don't have smartphone or internet. So when you compare one region with another region, one part of a state with another part of the state, it is not the same. So we have to have the change infrastructure, changing of the attitude of people, students, teachers, and also the administrators, because government spend money. But when you come to private university, they say that students are not coming, hostels are closed, messes are not running. We have shown 180 crores loss of our university last 1 year. The question is that we have been a loss. We are running because we have more than 2,500 COVID beds. If this hospital would not have been there, we would have almost come to a collapse. Now, question is that we have to make our priority. How we have to digitize our system so that we do not lag behind. We have seen the world ranking. Our best institute of Mumbai is 177 and IIS is 177 or 86. So if you look at that, we have to take huge number of university to the ranking. If we have to take huge, then a lot of infrastructure is required. And our teacher-student ratio, if you talk about top university, forget. If you talk about AIMS, IITs, IIM, forget. But what happened to by and large the state universities? There are 1:30, 1:40. Many posts are vacant. It is that the infrastructure is not there. As the teachers are not there. In Utkal University, 1/3 teacher posts are vacant. They are contractual because you can give one lecture, get 1,000 rupees and go, and you cannot give more than 15 lectures a month. Now here in that pandemic situation, you are telling you should have manpower, you should have technology, and your students should be able to enable to do. I am sure all we know, even a rickshaw puller has a smartphone. Even the vegetable vendor has a smartphone. But when you talk about smartphone on education, that is not the best method of education. We have to make it much more robust and acceptable so that our students don't see, okay, काम तो चल रहा था, अभी जो हम classroom में पढ़ते थे, we are now doing from smartphone. That's not correct. We have a digital platform, digital boards, digital hybrid classrooms. We have got 3 or 4 hybrid classrooms. One for the engineering, one for the management, one for the medical. Because our medical system, we had all exams online. The expert did not come. Even the long case and short case for postgraduate degrees, PG degrees were online. So we understand that there is need of the technology. We understand there is a deficiency of the money. We have to make phase-wise choices, and we have to see with administration, with the faculty, with the student, what best we can do in this pandemic situation, not post-COVID. I don't know how many times I had 2 vaccines, and my antibody level was 200 times than normal. Yet I got a COVID infection. I'm not demoralizing anybody, because when I did an antibody in March 30th, I sent to Chennai. The neutralizing antibody was 210, normal is 0.8. And when I got on 7th of May, my IgG, the immunoglobulins are 26, normal is 0.8. So question is that we must take vaccine. That is a much more priority than our digitization. We have to stay in the digital technology. We have to educate our student. But as Dr. Prabhat Ranjan say, it will take time. We have to have blended education. It is a slow process. When you have a crossroad of one system to another system, all 5 fingers are not well. We are all talking here at the blessed universities. Talk about a corner university who has nothing. Yesterday, it would have shown for black fungus, 90% of hospitals who don't have amphotericin B, or a micro debrider that has to take out the dirty fungus from nose and eyes and all this. How much it costs? 10 lakhs. Our ultra-modern hospitals do not have a micro debrider. So we have to really become practicable, looking our economy, looking our budget, and not constrain too much to the students, so that it is done. I think we have already in the process for last 2 decades or 3 decades, and we will take another 10 years to become uniform, because if I want my university and the all state university equal, it will take time. Because I am fortunate, I work in AIMS, I work in Sanjay Gandhi, I work in AIMS Bhubaneswar. So I know I work in top 3 medical, 3 AIMS and 1 Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute, which is 4th, and they spend 50 crores of budget for medical technology, 50 crores for making hybrid classroom and hybrid operation theater. So when you talk about teaching a MBA student, how you teach operation, you require hybrid operation theater. I don't know where the sound is coming. When you have to teach us operation in my scenario, we have cardiac surgery, neurosurgery, plastic surgery, transplant surgery, liver transplant. How to teach them? So you require very high hybrid operation theater that costs over 20-25 crores with all facility, 1 to a modular operation theater. So we understand the constraint, we understand the need, and we have to optimize that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ashok. You had dwelt quite serenely on the fact that we have to be very practical in our approach, and the economy has been taking a hit all along. There are certain things apart from that. You've talked about masks, you've talked about say production of ventilators, masks, etc. There is a small survey which was being forwarded by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare very recently in April 2021. You know what it said? Half of India does not wear a mask, and the other half does not wear it correctly. Only 14% wear it correctly. 14% of the other half. Now that is very, very
I don't
striking.
want to comment on our honorable citizens. Otherwise, I won't be carrying 2 masks. I don't be carrying 2 masks. We tell
Okay,
today,
thank you, sir.
one mask is not enough. 2 masks.
Now I would move on to Dr. Shahani, sir, please. In fact, we have been talking about collaboration everywhere. Sometimes collaboration between the student, parents, and the institutions, collaboration between industry, academia, as well as the government. Even the Honorable Prime Minister has in many LinkedIn posts and on many platforms talked about not being isolated islands of excellence, but trying to collaborate with each other to take India into the next level. So in fact, what are your views that how could this global collaboration between all these stakeholders be done positively? May I have your take, sir, please, on this?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Kumar. In fact, just to give you a little perspective, my doctorate is in the area of international student employability. And I've been working with universities around the world over the last few years and actually understand how the global collaboration happens. In fact, there's a lot of it already happening in other countries. I mean, this is something that we could all learn from. See, let's start with the area of employability. Let's start with that most basic thing, because I think as university leaders, our biggest problem today is to make sure our students get the best jobs or the best careers. However, we are not exactly sure how exactly to go about doing it. So one thing we've learned, and this is actually I've done in our own institutions as well with global institutions, is understand the actual employer mindset, right? When you look at collaborating with employers, what generally happens is that most of the time as universities, what we do is say, okay, fine, this is our curriculum. We send it to a couple of industry people and say, what do you think? The industry people say, yeah, it's all good. They may have a couple of suggestions in the curriculum, but they won't really get deeply involved, because as academicians, we tend to be very happy in our own little ivory towers, and as long as nobody's, criticizing us too much, we're happy there. However, what happens is that we tend to then focus on imparting more of the theoretical knowledge to our students, and we generally land up with less employable students. What has actually worked globally is actually getting the employers involved right from the beginning of the curriculum. That means that what has worked initially for employability is that, let's say, for example, you want to train students for the finance industry, for example, right? You actually need to start asking the bankers, okay, what are the skill sets that you're looking for? Hard skills in terms of understanding financial technology, hard skills in understanding, let's say, how to sell to customers, hard skills in actually how to interact with enterprise software. Then the softer skills you need. For example, like, let's say, what sort of leadership capability you need, what communication skills, what collaboration skills, what team working skills you need. Understand the requirement of the employer. Get them involved in the curriculum and say that, okay, now how do I build the curriculum where I focus on building up the team working of my students, the leadership, the understanding of enterprise software. Then you are really deeply collaborating versus just tick mark saying I've collaborated. So that's the starting point. Not just understanding the industry mindset, you also need to collaborate from the other side and show industry, look, these are the problems that we are facing. So for example, like a lot of industry focuses on saying that, okay, look, I want you to train students specifically for my job. Like for example, if you have bank A and bank B, they say, look, I want people who are trained for my specific job role. Where you have to say, look, I've got, let's say, 5,000 students in my university. I can't customize it for your generally banks. So you need to understand is that whatever curriculum development we do has to be something that works on a scalable model for 5,000 students that will allow them to join, be employable in not just banks, but even in media companies and technology companies. But there has to be a core curriculum that way, number one. Number two, once you've defined the overall curriculum, and you also need to define what are the assessments that are important. Because I think, unfortunately, this is something that we all know, is that most recruiters don't understand exams. So for example, when you look at the recruiter mindset, what they say is that, okay, look, when a student comes to me, an entry-level student comes in for employment, they say, okay, we look at your resume, we don't understand you've got 70% in history or you got 80% in, let's say, economics. That means nothing to us. It just shows generally that you've done in the past. the recruiter will look at, let's say, things like what extracurricular activities has the student done to show that they have done some leadership role, they've done something that developed their personality. They also, let's say, get a sense of how confidently the student speaks. So we as educators need to understand what will it take for the student not just to be employable, but to do well in the job interview. That means that as educators, we need to start getting inputs from industry and saying, how do we develop the student leadership skills in terms of giving them extra projects, giving internships? I think the more we're able to get internships from industry in our colleges, the better. And it's not just internships to say, okay, like you got the first semester, second semester, summer holiday, there's a 3-month internship, then again. Today, with a lot of online internships taking off, I think that what we've done in our colleges is also to integrate online internships from live companies throughout the semester. Every semester, we have an online internship because that allows the student to actually get integrated with industry. Because don't forget, the student also has to understand what's needed by industry and how to work well in industry. And the industry also appreciates the fact that the student has gone beyond and actually interned in many job roles, so therefore they're more employable. The other thing that we need to understand is that when you look at global collaboration, and this is unfortunate, most of our understanding of global collaboration is let's collaborate with a university in the UK or US, maybe Australia. The world is way beyond the Anglo-Saxon model of business. So for example, I know this is maybe an unpopular opinion, but I think that look at where the most of business is going to grow. China, fantastic. I don't see why we can't collaborate with Chinese universities. Why can't we collaborate with universities, let's say, in the Middle East? I mean, actual Arabian universities, Central Europe. Because understand one thing, most of the business growth that's happening in India, yes, the US is there, technocentric is fine, but a lot of business is moving towards Asia into countries outside of the US, UK, and Australia. So therefore, as universities, we need to start understanding there are different mindsets, different perspectives that we can learn from. In fact, there's a great book I suggest that every academic reads. It's called How the World Thinks. How the World Thinks talks about, let's say, what is the academic tradition of India, China, of the Middle East, of, let's say, outside the US perspective. Because if you understand different global mindsets, you're able to integrate very well with other things. So I think that if you look at global collaboration, start looking at universities outside the US, UK model. The third thing I think is very important is to understand is that when you look at collaboration, also look at collaborating across disciplines. So for example, when you have, let's say, a university, let's say you have students who are studying economics and you have students who are studying, let's say, political science, let's say students studying, let's say, languages. Why do all projects need to happen within the class? Why do students have to do projects, an economics project only within economics? Why can't an economics student collaborate with a student who's doing political science, a student that's doing languages? Because if you look at multi different mindsets, you actually get a better perspective. Because when you join a company, you already are working with people with different mindsets. Why should we not have these different mindsets coming in? So therefore, you will get the, let's say, the quantitative skills, or let's say the economics math student. You may get the qualitative rhetoric argument of, let's say, the philosophy student. That will come together to actually form better projects. Especially if you're able to work on these projects with industry, it works much better that way. So I would say let's go beyond the standard models of collaboration and understand cross-disciplinary collaboration within our universities, getting industry deeper integrated into our curriculum. And the third thing is that look at international collaboration beyond the US, UK, and into other countries. Those are the three main areas I'd like to discuss. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. In fact, it was a great narration of how we should go ahead. What is the way forward in terms of collaboration, which you just initiated. Of course, internationally, the pandemic would be serving as a catalyst for the development of strategic interdependencies in education. How do we leverage that collective strength? Now, going away from the US, Europe, and finding out other stakeholders where we would collaborate better and where would our interests would also come together at a certain point in a better fashion. That means both would have equal leverage in terms of providing each other education. So this is one way to go forward, sir. Now, Professor Dr. Rajesh Arora, sir, welcome to the panel today. In fact, there's some other question which has just come to my mind with the organizers have not given me, in fact. The responses to the pandemic will be different from one place to the other. from one context to another, but they must be based on a humanistic vision of education and development and human rights framework. That means actions must strengthen public education, fortify a common goal for all, and expand and bring about a global solidarity which emphasizes a collective responsibility for the education everyone everywhere. That means what should be the humanistic and ethics and value approach towards education in the post-COVID area. Dr. Rajesh, over to you, sir.
Sure, thanks a lot. I would just put my camera off so that I can get a better bandwidth, uh, since the internet connection is a challenge here in Arunachal Pradesh right now. I want to start with something very basic principle which has been embedded on the entry gate of the Parliament hall also, which talks about the Vasudev Kutumbakam, which says that the entire universe is a one family. And I'm sure in this global pandemic environment, we all have been able to set up an ambitious vision to look from a perspective of how we can have a global solidarity. This is one aspect which pandemic has really taught us. But was it existing in the Indian context earlier also? And I would say I'm quite glad that this situation is also bringing us to the Indian ancient knowledge and wisdom, which was existing many years back when there were no computers, there were no books, and there were no pens. But through recitation, the entire information and knowledge was transformed. The ethics and the values of deliverables were very different. Today, are we talking about that anything has changed? Uh, Personally, for me, except IT, I do not think anything has changed. But what is required, basic to change here is that we have been talking about having course plans, teaching plans, communicating to the students much in advance what needs to be studied at what point in time. We are also talking about pre-reading work when there was no pandemic and we were expecting students to read and come to the class and be well prepared. However, we would have found that that has not happened even at that point in time. Today, now with the use of IT, with having smartphones, the knowledge is not just capitalized into one cell phone, and it's easy for a student to access everything. So I think that is one of the biggest changes come where we have integrated the education to IT, and this is one of the interesting talent that has been brought up by the universities and various organizations which are running into IT educations as such. I want to really congratulate all the teachers community who were much comfortable in teaching in the class, but I think they geared up to learn all the technologies in schools also to see that they are able to do this job. And as a result, and I think this is where one of the biggest attitudinal shift that has brought this pandemic has brought not only to the teachers, to the students, to the parents community, where we have all started looking out for new strategies, innovations, community-based programs it could be. And that's how I think this would enhance the entire value of the system itself. But yes, without deploying any kind of educational technology, we will not be able to bring it up. Like we say, we need to upgrade the software. We also need to upgrade the software of mind. We also need to upgrade the power of schools so that they are able to build up a better teaching or learning needs, which we talk about it. And at the same time, how do we bring a equality in the education systems and resources, because every institution will not be able to invest so much amount of money, uh, keeping in mind the entire IT infrastructure. And interiors of the country do not have proper internet connectivity. How many students would be having the computer desktops available or laptops available or iPads available where they will be able to complete their work? So I think this is one of the area where, besides sharing the solidarity, we need to really work out on certain other important measures as to how do we upscale. And this is where, if companies are thinking of building up the infrastructure, some part of the CSR project should be utilized for interiors of the states where such infrastructure is not available. And I'm sure such platforms where we voice our opinion when some companies are looking for it, which would really work out. Quality instructions very essential. This could really work out for institutions where internet is a problem. So I can see a pre-recorded lesson at any point in time which is possible for me if I'm missing a class as such, or maybe a differentiated instructions, having some computer test or some kind of tutoring that can be done, some kind of student practices that can be done through simulations, gamifications. I've seen a lot of videos and games that have been prepared nowadays. Even when I'm doing training in corporates, I get frequent requests of gamification exercise and simulation models instead of getting into one-to-one training. And finally, I would say practice is essentially important. So overall, I would say that if we use these measures, this is definitely going to bring up a stronger relationship between the parents, the teachers, the academia community, and student as a whole, so that we are able to build up that value-based and integrity-based learning environment around us.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Actually, you went off the scene, so we thought maybe we've completed a discourse. I'm sorry. If you want to continue, please do so. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajesh.
Yeah, sure.
You have touched on so many points. In fact, I would rather say that some of the intonations which you have given, that industry should come up and help build resource in the remote areas of the country is also with a CSR. I think that would happen from industry to industry. Yeah, I don't think the government would like to step in that. Now we have some very nice queries from the audience. I would request each one of the distinguished panelists, once we give the query to one, please give a quick answer of 2-3 minutes so that we can deal with as much queries as possible. The first query is from Mrs. Rajamma of JMJ Degree and PG College. Professor Prabhat, I give this to you. How will the universities and higher educational institutes manage to overcome regulatory, financial, and cultural obstacles to implement its digital transformation? What best practices to follow?
So, personally, if I look at this digital transformation, as I was aware of the changes that were taking place, and not only today, actually, 21 years ago when I joined as a professor at Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of ICT in Gandhinagar. That time also, we were looking at this whole aspect. The regulatory bodies have certain requirements which are frozen in time, while the technology is changing fast. I'll just give you a simple example. If I take libraries, when I was in Kharagpur in late 70s, or even in US, I used to spend a lot of my time in library. Kharagpur, I used to be every evening I would be in library. In Berkeley, every weekend I would be in library. But as the knowledge started to come to us on a computer or mobile phone and so on, I do not have to go to library. So, but do I require the same amount of space in the library as required by regulatory bodies, or the number of books in physical form that is required by regulatory bodies? I think it's not required. So I need to make sure that the technological changes that are happening, I don't invest too much on the physical infrastructure and the physical books. Rather, I subscribe to e-books, e-journals, and provide a space and the bandwidth, internet bandwidth, and so on to make it possible to serve that. So regulatory bodies have to also respond to these changes, and we are the ones who can trigger that. If we keep quiet, then regulatory bodies also keep quiet. So, for example, I'll give an example of what we did. 2019, I started a computer science program. We are a new university, so we had an opportunity as well as a challenge. But then we changed the game, and the result that we saw because of changing technological landscape, we created a new curriculum which AICT appreciated and actually formed a committee to revamp the computer science curriculum as well as bringing new emerging technology. I was a member of that, due to which last 2 years actually the whole country there has been a complete change in the computer science related areas. What we started in our university has led to change. Similarly, I'm chairing a committee of AICT. In fact, we are going to launch on 14 June, which is setting up idea labs across the country on a fab lab concept that we have tried in our university. It's not a new concept, it's being tried, but now it's been taken up by regulatory bodies to spread across the country. So actually it is possible to get regulatory bodies to look into the changing situation and invest money by the institution in the right places as the technology changing, so that we can actually bring about the digital transformation that we are talking about. But also it's also an internal issue, not a regulatory issue, internal issue of work culture, trying to get our people to utilize these technologies properly, whether it's faculty member, whether it's our staff. Many of them resist changes. So that is an internal issue, and the leadership plays a very, very important role in this. So I'll stop at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Prabhat. I think you have given an answer which is very deserving and explained all the details, how the internal resources have to be capitalized on and everything. I think the best practices also you've explained. Now, the other query, which is from Mrs. Sunita Natyal of from Gurgaon, GD Goenka. Did the pandemic worsen the campus mental health crisis? I will give it to Professor Dr. Ashok Mahapatra. Did the pandemic worsen the campus mental health crisis? And there would be a leading question which she has maybe not asked: how to overcome it in the post-COVID
You are
area?
absolutely right. You are absolutely right. The psychology of the teachers, student, administrator, and doctors have all deteriorated. If you look at I was told yesterday there are 1 lakh publications on COVID, and there are large number of, when I give a talk, psychosocial impact of COVID on the society. We all talk about health and damage and medicine and ventilator. We don't talk about job loss, psychology, suicidal attempt. On 15th of May, 50 doctors died in India. And in my family, 3 doctors have died. And in Delhi, 110 doctors died in the month of April and May. So you have to understand, it is not only the campuses, and what about the parents of the students? So they are working in a constant position, because classes, we all thought students are very happy at home with the parents. Ask the parent, every day parents come and say their work and sleep cycle has changed. The students don't sleep before 1 a.m. Most of them get up at 12 midday, because they have nothing to do. They just adjust to the online classes at 10 or 11. Till that time, they say they have become really, there is anxiety state. We have no vaccine for the children. On 5th of November, AICT said that all the campuses should open, provided that the state government allow what is the local condition of pandemic. On 15th of November, UGC said that all the vice chancellor have power to follow the pandemic rule and open the colleges. How do you adjust in the hostel where the 4 people are staying? You require 3 numbers of time. How do I adjust the classroom? That means I kept on telling many government system in Odisha, you have, instead of giving 1 hour lecture, give 15 minutes. Have one class from 8 to 12, 1/3 student, another batch 1 to 4, another batch from 5 to 9. After all, doctors working 24 hours, police are working, water work working, disaster management working. Why not our teacher can work? Now, after 1.5 years, the government of Odisha has told the officers will have 1/3 attendance. Otherwise, at 10 o'clock, 9 to 10, you see the road. The question is that, have we adjusted to our pandemic? The pandemic doesn't go away. Again, I'm telling, what we have to see, the psychology students, psychology teacher, parents in the job loss of, I was talking to one of my cousin working in a company in Bangalore. He gets half salary for last 6 months. How is he going to pay the whole fee for the students? Now you look at the student. University doesn't pay half salary to the teachers. So we take full salary. So question is that the administrator will like to get entire money. So now what happened? The tussle between the parent and the students are parents and the administration. So there are High Court and Supreme Court cases. In fact, High Court and Supreme Court have given judgment. The universities and higher education and private institutions should reduce the price 20 to 30%. We all know this. So yes, student, their psychology has gone. There is no regular classrooms. There is no interaction. They don't can play. Home is not a place. It's a house arrest. Practically, I am lucky I'm a doctor. It's a house arrest. So what happened? How to develop the personality? We are talking about holistic development. If the holistic development can happen 5 years and online education, then you don't require teachers, university. You go to YouTube and take lectures. What Akhil sir are telling, Shahani sir, how do you holistic? Can you get everything done in the, if you look at our NEP 2020, how you have got mentoring, how you have got grooming, how to develop character. You cannot have character sitting at home with online lectures. Believe or not, 5 years children, the 5 years old children are knowing how to do internet, but they do not wake up before 10 o'clock. They will never see sunlight. The morning rising sun, they will never see. So if you think that is the development, I don't mind. But I can tell about 60% people are depressed and about 25% have suicidal tendency because job loss. And if you talk about, I see children every day, and it is misery,
Yes,
misery,
sir.
absolute misery. Absolute misery.
Yes, Professor Ashok, I think you are very right in saying that these days the mental crisis have become so prominent, and even suicidal tendencies have taken place. Not even the I'm saying the senior citizens, but in the young children as well. So these tendencies have come. A question for Dr. Akhil Shahani, sir. It is from Mr. Rahul Chauhan, Amity University. What is the major impact of cancellation of 10th, 12th and entrance examination on higher education in the long run? Sir.
Great. I'll try to keep answer very short because I know it's short of time. But let's talk about the short-term impact and the long-term impact, right? The short-term impact is that most Indian students are used to partying throughout the year, taking tuitions, and the last 2 weeks before the exam, they study very, very hard to get good marks in the 10th and 12th. Now, what's happened is that since the 10th and 12th exams have been cancelled, schools are now saying, okay, let's take the average of their performance in the year. And a lot of students are wondering, because now the thing is that they've been like not really focusing on studies all this time, and suddenly their performance in tests are being checked versus their final exams. The other problem is that when you're looking at admission into colleges, a lot of it is based on just the linear merit list of the percentages that you got in the 10th and 12th exams. So the thing is that where even 0.1% makes a difference, taking the average of the student performance is going to make a very big mess of the merit list in the 10th and 12th. So I think in the short term, the students of who are graduating in 2021, I think maybe 2020, will be impacted in terms of their college admission options. Again, I'm not getting into, let's say, what happens at IIT, joint entrance exam and things like that. That's the short term. The long term, and I'm hoping, really hoping from an optimistic point of view, which I unfortunately maybe only a 10% chance of this happening, is that universities realize that we really don't need exams. Why the heck should we only admit students only on the performance, the academic performance in the 10th and 12th? Why can't universities be a little more wider looking and say, look, I would admit students based on the fact that what sort of extracurricular activities they've done, do they have an interview, do we interview them, see what their personality is, what sort of personality do they have that makes them a potential leader that will join our institute. It should not only be the academic score. So I would say is that if universities take this chance and say, look, let's stop looking at the 10th and 12th exams only as the entry point of our universities and start looking at other parameters to decide on the student, I think we'll actually have a better quality education model going forward. And hopefully there's a chance to make major changes in the industry.
Thank you, Dr. Akhil. I think you have deliberated upon the fact that we should think of the long run, not only of the present. Where there is another question from Mr. Pankaj Agarwal, SRM University, to Dr. Rajesh Arora. Sir, will COVID-19 have a lasting impact on globalization of education? Can you please give some thoughts on that?
Yes, definitely. I would say a lasting impact and a lasting impression to everyone. I remember last year in May, I read the circular of University of Cambridge, which said that till next year, May 21, all the classes will be held online. Well, it was news to me and a very big surprise element that the university has taken such a forestalling important decision for the whole year. And whereas we are taking decisions in piecemeal basis, but I think they were right in managing their affairs well. Abroad, the infrastructures of the university is much stronger as compared to our Indian context. So as a result, I think if we want to look at this lasting impact, it has told us that we need to pull up our socks and we need to build our infrastructure. As we said that Prabhat sir said that yes, we can't run the library with books, but we can run it with e-books now. So we need to look from the perspective, it's just not the infrastructure, but the private education institutions, public institutions have to invest more now on the infrastructural aspects to look at it. So that's the first impact that is going to be definitely coming up. At the same time, I also want to look up at the previous question that has come up, and that is going to create a lasting impact on the education system, where students are going to pass out without exams also. Some are going to go to the job market and some will be promoted. And hence, I think this impact would definitely create some amount of bridge courses so that they are able to get their conceptual things right before they enter into the university. The third thing which we would like to look from the perspective of the institution is how they, what kind of skill elements are going to be required now. Because as we see the industry, not 4.0, we are going to 5.0. Different skill elements are going to be expected, and we are expecting all this from our students who are going to graduate from the university. So probably there will be a lot of impact on the course curriculum too, where we need to design something which would be brought up in the forefront during the entire coursework, so that when the student is getting into the job market, so that he or she, they are ready in fact. So overall, I would say the traditional research methods that were existing with us, they are now getting into the documentary mode, the reflective mode, the feedback mode with the students, and the choices with the students as to how they want to study, the online, the offline, the blended. So I think there will be a lasting impact on this globalization of education. And we teachers have to really prepare ourselves a lot. So it's just a beginning at the moment, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. I think the query stands answered so well. One last question just for 2 minutes before I hand it over to the organizers. It is open to all. What all higher education innovations are expected in the next 5 years? This is from Mrs. Shalini of Amrita University. Any of the panelists may just take it from here. I would not name anyone right now. I would repeat the question. What all higher education innovations are expected in the next 5 years?
So I think if this question was asked in 2018, in 5 years, they would have been totally wrong in 2020, 21, because the thing is, the whole point of innovation is that you can't expect innovations. Right now, our assumption of innovations is based on technology and a slow growth and a slow direction of education. What I would rather say is that instead of actually saying we expect innovation, I would say, as a high education leader, expect the unexpected and build yourself and build your organization to be able to deal with whatever changes happen in the industry. You'd rather be flexible and adaptive to whatever changes happen than rather expect a certain innovation and plan for that, and it doesn't turn out to be the way you expect.
Yeah,
Thank you
I would
so
like
much,
to.
Dr. Akhil. Professor Prabhat, you had probably said that you would be like to say something on this. We have just 2 more minutes before I hand over the platform to the organizers, sir.
Yeah, I will quickly mention. I had already mentioned a few things that I expect to see, which is going to impact the education sector: augmented reality, virtual reality, holography, the language part itself, the fact that you can translate languages on the go. But also, as Dr. Rajesh was talking about, bandwidth being an issue, we're expecting to see that Skylink kind of thing that Elon Musk is planning, which he had promised that even in India it may be possible in the June if the regulatory bodies provide the permission, which means that does not matter which part of the world you are, you have access to 300 megabits per second link from the sky. So it's just like the dish TV becomes accessible to all, the bandwidth becomes accessible to all. Similarly, I'm also expecting that technology like 5G that is happening will reduce the latency of transmission, and the bandwidth will improve. This will also lead to interactive sessions like holography and so on, all that can come in. So the number of such technological possibilities that are going to impact education sector. So it's not innovation for the sake of education, but innovation happening around the other areas which will impact the education. Thank you.
Just
Thank
one
you,
line
Dr.
I want to
Prabhat.
say.
I think. Okay, Dr. Rajesh, just one, sir.
Just one line.
Please.
Yeah, I would say that
please go ahead,
IT should be, IT should be just a facilitator for all of us, because no one can come between the guru and the shishya, and hence the innovation that I would look forward for is an innovative attitude between the teacher and the student to take the education forward. That's it.
Yeah, Dr. Rajesh, thank you so much. It has been a wonderful session, and I'm very, very thankful to all the distinguished panelists here to give me this chance of moderation, and thanks to Mr. Abhishek and Elets and Dr. Ravi Gupta sir, because I've been on this platform since a long time. And Mr. Abhishek, I hand over this platform to you now. The session
Thank you, Dr. Abhay, sir. We have lots of more questions from the audience side. I will just text and emails to the question. If it seems worthy for you, you can revert me on that. And I would like to thank all my speakers for giving your precious time to World Education Summit and giving these wonderful deliberations. So a small token of appreciation from the WS side, I would like to request Aman to please give the speaker certificate to our esteemed speaker for this session. So Aman, can we have a speaker? And I would like to thank our speaker and moderator, Professor Dr. Abhay Kumar, Vice Chancellor, Pratap University from Jaipur. Dhanyawad, Abhay sir. Thank you for giving your precious time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So it's my privilege.
Professor Prabhat Ranjan, Vice Chancellor, D.Y. Patil International University from Pune. Thank you, Prabhat sir. Always a pleasure to have you on our platform, sir. Thank you very much for giving your precious time. Professor Dr. Ashok Mahapatra, Vice Chancellor, Siksha O Anusandhan, deemed to be University from Bhubaneswar. Thank you, Ashok sir. Thank you for being on our platform. Dr. Akhil Shahani, Managing Director, the Shahani Group from Mumbai. Thank you, Akhil sir. Thank you for giving your precious time.
Thank you.
And our last not least, Dr. Professor Rajesh Arora, Vice Chancellor, Apex Professional University from Arunachal Pradesh. Thank you, Rajesh sir. Thank you very much for giving your precious time. So I request all the audience, you can follow our speakers on their social handles as well. They are very much pretty active on the social handles. If you have any question, any query, just ping us. Just please ask the relevant question. Please don't ask any other types of question so that they can revert to you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Namaskar.
much. Thank you. Namaskar. Namaskar.
Thank you.